here again, the MoguFootball.com weekly podcast, here with the man, the myth, the legend, Damon Anderson. And Damon, we had a really good week from Montgomery County football last week, man. I believe we won all of our games except for one. We had a good showing, man. I mean, we definitely showed the rest of the state that we are the SEC of football. And, we got another chance again with Damascus facing an out-of-county opponent. Obviously the 4A teams and Paint Branch also facing an out-of-county opponent. And, I'm sure either QO or Northwest are going to get their chance in the semis. So, first, let's start off by talking about in-county game that was the best game of the weekend for us. QO versus Clarksburg. Clarksburg going to the Cougar Dome and trying to knock them off. Obviously, they came up a little bit short. The game ended up being 21-14. What do you think about that game? Obviously, it kind of went the way that we kind of thought it was going to go, as far as knockdown, drag-out game, both running games. Defenses played well, but I believe that QO kind of came up with the plays that he needed to, just like in the first game of the season, to win the game and pull it out. What do you think about that game, and do you think that QO showed themselves well heading back into another rematch with Northwest? And what do you have to say about Clarksburg overall in their season?
Yeah, the game between Quince and Clarksburg on Friday night lived up to every expectation. If you saw the game that they had early in the season, week one, this was just a continuation of the same game with the intensity cranked up to 11.
Right.
Very cold night.
Right.
Abnormally cold for, this time of year in Maryland. But,
right.
Everybody on the field did not seem to be affected by the cold that much as the spectators were. But,
right.
Yeah, the kids, and the referees, the coaches, they didn't seem fazed at all. I think everybody involved was just totally amped up and focused on this game. It was a great game. Very physical. Very physical. Those kids were not shying away from contact on either side of the ball for either side of the team. Lots of hard, big hits on this cold night.
Right.
But yeah, it played out how the results ended in what I expected them to end in. But how we got to that point, yeah, I didn't see that. This may have been, for me personally, for a game that I saw in person, one of the most exciting games I've seen in a while, especially for such a low-scoring affair.
Right.
Clarksburg opened up the gates quick with a 75-yard touchdown, which looked eerily similar to the same play they ran from Joe Nacy to Holland on a play-action play going for 70, 75 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, it was perfect. Joe hit Tavis right in stride, and he was off to the races.
Right.
And immediately it was like, yeah, this is going to be a good game. Like, you knew you had that thought going in, but to see Clarksburg score first in such a dramatic fashion, it was like, all right, this is going to be nice.
Right.
And on the flip side, Clarksburg's defense played awesome. It took QO, I do believe, 3 until their third or fourth drive before they finally found the end zone.
Okay.
And then after that, it was pretty much, QO's game. Actually, I take that back. It was still up in the air except for right before halftime. Clarksburg had the ball. They were driving down the field. There was about a minute left, and they fumbled the ball, and QO recovered change.
Right.
And they were able to punch it in with basically less than a minute on the clock. I mean, you ask anybody, you'd never want to go in down at halftime, but you definitely don't want to give up a score right before halftime.
Right. Right.
And from my standpoint, that changed the complexity of the game. Instead of going in tied up, now you're down a score where if basically you were able to hold on to the ball, that would not have been the case.
Right.
And then QO gets the ball back at halftime, I do believe. Even if they didn't, the end result was QO was up 21-7 midway through the third quarter.
Right.
And at that point, yeah, a lot of people on the QO side were feeling pretty good. This is not the type of defense to give up, multiple scores in short succession. So, yeah, for good reason, everybody was feeling kind of good on the QO sidelines.
Okay.
And, they basically, shut it down, started playing the clock, not taking as many chances. And that seemed to be working for the most part because...
Yeah, they got conservative.
Correct. And the Quince defense was doing their thing. Clarksburg was moving the ball, but not enough to where
right.
you ever got the thought that they were going to score.
They're going to, yeah.
So that changed at some point in the third quarter when Clarksburg was able to mount an excellent drive and get the score within one touchdown, 14-21.
Right.
And this is where it gets real interesting in the fourth quarter. In a nutshell, I do believe Clarksburg had the ball 3 times within the final 5 minutes in the red zone.
Yeah.
And they were unable to come away with a touchdown. And from my standpoint, that's the best football I've seen all year.
Now, let me ask you a question. Was that more to do with Clarksburg or QO just standing up to him?
In my opinion, it was Quince Orchard. Clarksburg, they were it's hard for me to say, but from what I've seen, it seemed like they switched up the offense a little bit.
Right.
You saw some different formations, and they seemed to be passing a little bit more than what their standard offense does.
Okay.
And it was working. They were definitely pulling off some great plays, but
right.
when it came down to crunch time, third and 5 or third and goal, QO was able. The QO players were basically able to pull it off. There were a couple of pass plays that Clarksburg had where it was right on the money.
Right.
When the ball left Joe's hands, and you saw where the receiver was, it's like, okay, that's a touchdown.
Right.
And then at the very last minute, you would see Barlow just fly in and swat a ball down.
Right.
On another play, it was a safety, Nate Hill, basically doing the same thing. I do believe there were 3 plays where at the outset of that play, when you saw the play developing, it looked to be going Clarksburg way. But Coach Kelly had those kids in the right position to make those plays. And that's another thing I wanted to highlight. The chess match between Coach Kelly and Coach Hurd was an awesome thing to behold. I'm really big on body language. And sometimes I pay more attention to the coaches on the sideline than the actual plays, just to see. Not that I know what plays they're sending in, but just you can sense by the urgency.
Right.
When they're calling an audible at the last second, trying to get certain kids' attention.
Right.
Because they're seeing something in the formation that they know may be coming, and we need to make that adjustment immediately.
Right.
And yeah, the chess match between those two was great. I mean, those are Coach Hurd for years has been considered one of the best young coaches in the county, even though not quite so young anymore.
Right.
But
yeah.
He's always been in the discussion, and with Coach Kelly, this being his first year, people were eager to see what he would do at the helm, and obviously he's it's been golden.
Yeah.
What he's done at Quince Orchard, but
hasn't lost a beat.
But yeah, that chess match between the coaches, it was good to behold, especially on those last 3 drives that Clarksburg had in the end zone. It was just tit for tat, just like, and it's hard to say that either one of them made a mistake because the play calling seemed legit. It was just the kids that stepped up with their athleticism, and and that's the difference in football. You can be in the wrong position or call the wrong play, but it's the athletes that make up for that discrepancy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the Quince Orchard secondary stepped up. Yeah, that was great. I mean, there were at least 4 times during the game where I personally thought, okay, this is over.
Right.
And something happened. On one of those drives, Green had an uncharacteristic fumble after Clarksburg had turned the ball over on downs.
Right.
And it gave him second life. And it's like, it was that feeling of, if you keep giving teams chances, you just feel a weight coming down upon you, like, oh, this is one of those games.
Yeah, it might be one of those games, right.
And credit to the kids at Quince Orchard and the coaching staff for, even though things may not be going our way necessarily, we can still pull this off.
Right.
And kudos to the Clarksburg. I mean,
oh, absolutely. They had a great season.
I've said it before, they were the best 7-3 team in the state.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
All of their losses this year have been barn burners.
Right.
Classic games. Nobody on the Clarksburg team or coaching staff has anything to be ashamed about.
Right.
They all played their hearts out.
Right.
I mean, it was great. Great. If nobody has had the opportunity yet, I highly recommend you check out Clarksburg at some point in the future. They are a quality program that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. Do you think that this is going to be the starting point for Clarksburg?
I don't have any inside information. I don't know what type of kids they have coming up through the ranks, but I do know a little bit about the coaching staff and what they have in place over there. And I would be shocked to see Clarksburg fall off after this. Absolutely shocked.
Right.
They're going to be in the hunt every year.
Right.
Is my personal opinion.
Right.
The only problem is they play in the same division as Quince Orchard and Northwest.
Yeah.
And Damascus is their main rival.
Yeah. So they're always going to be on the schedule.
Right. So most years, they're going to be playing at least 2 of those teams.
Right.
If not all 3.
Right.
But, that's the nature of the beast when you're the SEC of Maryland football.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that they're definitely – I want to see Clarksburg rise to the top because I remember the first game that I went to, the Clarksburg QO game, the first game of the season, the atmosphere in the stadium was incredible. Coach Hurd had the whole thing going out there, and it was something to behold, man. It was really, really cool. And I think that they're thirsting for a winner. I think they're thirsting for, if they're able to put together a few good seasons, I think that could be one of the better atmospheres in Montgomery County. You see now, a lot of people said it couldn't be done at Paint Branch, and you see now that Paint Branch is getting to that point where they're a consistent program. Now, again, like you stated, they're in a different situation because Paint Branch is in the bracket with Sherwood and Blair and those teams and Springbrook. So right now they're, you're really talking about Sherwood that you have to compete with. You know, Clarksburg, they're going to have to. We can surmise that Northwest is going to be around for a while. We already know that QO is going to be around for a while. So, you know, contending with those teams right there alone is going to, you know, lend itself to it being a little bit difficult for you to maintain a consistent thing. And then now you also have the fact that, like you said, Damascus is the main rival. So it's going to be a little bit harder for them than Paint Branch, but I definitely think that they can do it.
Absolutely. It's going to happen.
Right.
Eventually. I mean, you can see their trajectory outside of a couple of seasons where they were decimated by injuries that kind of threw a monkey wrench in individual seasons.
Right.
I mean, you can just look at the overall picture and see what Coach Hurd has built in Clarksburg, and nobody's going to look at you crazy to say that they're going to get the job done within the next 5 years.
Right. Absolutely. And you know, I love what Coach Hurd has done with the program. I think that Dave made great strides. I just think that right now for them it's just getting over the hump. That's
Absolutely.
it. Once they break through, I think that we're going to be having to, all those teams out there are going to have to be dealing with Clarksburg for years to come. But it's just, you know, every team goes through it. You got to get over.
Every team.
Yeah, you got to get over that hump at some point, and they will. It's gonna click. One day it's gonna click, and they're gonna get over that hump, and we're gonna be talking about a great team coming up here because they got a great coaching staff and everything in place to do it. Transitioning over to the 3A, and this is a game that I was kind of dreading, Damon, for a while. We talked about this at the beginning of the season, and look, Raekwon Gray came in, and Damascus got him right back out there. They were tired of it. You know, every single movie, Damon, where you have the bully, you have the guy that's taking the lunch money and everything like that. At some point, the little kid with the glasses rises up and throws that haymaker, and everybody's shocked. And Damascus, you know, they took off the glasses with the duct tape, started lifting some dumbbells, and they came back. You know, full force, man. They weren't having it anymore. As the kids like to say, they were not rocking. You know, with Raekwon Gray taking away their state championship hopes again for another year. So again, they held Raekwon to under 100 yards rushing, which is, I mean, if anybody knows about this kid,
50 yards rushing.
Under 50 yards rushing. And if you know anything about this kid, that's that's a
incredible.
I mean, the words can't really even begin to explain what kind of feat that is, right?
Incredible.
So, I mean, they lay down a performance. Mr. Jake Funk, a lot of people got after us for.
My man.
Yeah. He a lot of people got after us for not mentioning him in the regular season.
I forgot.
Yeah, let's specify this by saying we were talking about the regular season MVP. Okay.
Correct.
We were not talking about now. Naturally, as the season goes on, as the postseason goes on, you know, people like Mark Pierce, Jake Funk, guys like, you know, Kyle Green, guys like that, they're all going to get consideration. I mean, they're obviously their body of work is going to be, you know, up there with the best of them. So we were talking about just strictly for the regular season what we saw, but Jake, a lot of people got on this because both of us, we didn't mention Jake Funk. Listen, that kid, he's as good as it comes, right? And he outplayed Raekwon Gray. That's what it boils down to. He outplayed Raekwon Gray, and they, as Damascus as a whole, as a defense, took it upon themselves to make sure Raekwon Gray doesn't go off, and that's what they did. And I honestly believe, Damon, that, you know, they got that focus now. For a while during the regular season, we were wondering where that killer instinct was. I think now that they're in the postseason, it's there. And it's going to be scary for the other teams coming up. So what do you think about that game, and what kind of message do you think Damascus sent with that victory?
Okay. I love your analogy, first off, about the bully.
Right.
In my mind, a specific movie pops in. It's a movie called Friday. Starring, produced, written by Ice Cube.
Right.
Most of you probably know him as a film star. Most old people know him as a rapper.
Right. Yep.
But there was a bully in that movie by the name of Debo. And all you had to hear was Debo coming down the block, and people ran.
Right.
And in my mind, Raekwon Gray was Debo.
Right.
Every time he came around, he basically beat people up.
Right.
And Damascus got beat up for 2 years in a row.
Right.
I do believe the first time he came to town, he ran for over 250 yards.
Yeah.
3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Then he came back around the block again because it was so good he had to do it again.
Right.
This time he ran for about 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So that was kind of good too. So he came back for 3rd.
Yeah.
Once again, he's coming down the block with his bike squeaking. Something happened this time.
Yeah.
I don't know who was Craig or who was Smokey.
Right.
I'll let Mr. Funk or Mr. Christian debate that one.
Right.
They knocked him out.
Right.
Cold.
Yeah.
To hold a player of Ray's caliber to under 50 yards for 4 quarters is incredible.
It's insane.
Incredible. Not to mention that he showed up with somebody who used to live in the neighborhood less than a year ago, and Coach Mack. So, he showed up,
right.
let it back.
Yeah.
Respected.
Yeah. Some people that used to live in the hood, right?
Right.
They moved out.
Coach Wallach and the kids were able to say, "This is our block."
Right.
This is now our block again.
Right.
And although I will say this, I think I mentioned it last week, but every great player that Damascus has played this year, they have
they've done a great
shut
job
down or at least limited them to their normal capacity. They held Kyle Green well under his game average.
Right.
They shut down Chuck Reese.
Right.
They shut down Adrian Pulis-Platt.
Yep.
So, and all 3 of those kids are excellent, solid, good football
absolutely.
players.
Absolutely.
And Damascus was able to solve their riddles.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that they held Mr. Gray under his season average, but to shut him down in that capacity, that was a statement.
Right.
That was a statement to Urbana, to Frederick County, and the rest of the state that this may be the year of the Swarming Hornet.
No, absolutely. I mean, you see the fact that everybody saw Melvin Gordon put up 400 yards in the game, right? This past weekend. Well, Raekwon did that to somebody, So this is a kid that is amazing. He's gonna be playing on Saturdays somewhere, and right now he's committed to Temple. So most likely he's gonna be going to Temple. So he's gonna be a name that we're gonna be hearing, for time to come. And for Damascus to come in and just say, no, we're not gonna take it anymore. We're gonna go ahead and get this done. We have a senior team. We have a team that's ready for states. We're not gonna let you take our dreams anymore. We're done with it. I think the Friday analogy was great. At some point you get fed up, man. And they did. And they really were focused. And I think they heard all the chatter. I mean, I remember I talked to Jake to Mr. Funk before, way before this matchup even started. I believe it was like week 3. When I talked to him, I believe it was before the QO game, and he even mentioned Raekwon Gray at that time. So Raekwon Gray has been on their minds for a while, and they showed it, man. They were ready for him, and Raekwon really, I think that he was shocked by the way that the swarming Hornets were swarming on last Friday. So yeah, I definitely think that that Damascus really showed themselves well. Transitioning over to this week's matchups, when we look at now they're facing Linganore, another great team out of Frederick County. How do you think that last week's game, is going to help them out when it comes on to momentum? And what kind of team do you think Linganore is? And
okay, so traditionally, Linganore is basically your old school Montgomery County type team.
Right.
Line up behind your big boys, sometimes 2 to 3 running backs.
Right.
If not 3 running backs, an extra tight end, and play big boy football.
Right.
Run it off tackle, run it off the middle, and dare the other team to stop them.
Right.
You mentioned to me earlier that from what you've seen, they seem to have diversified their offense.
Yeah.
At least for this year.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, what remains the same is a big, strong offensive line.
Yeah.
And against Damascus, I expect them to revert back to their traditional ways.
Right.
If not for the only reason that Damascus has, at least in my opinion, the best secondary in Montgomery County.
Mm-hmm.
They not just the secondary, the defense period.
Right.
They've shut down some high-powered offenses this year. But in my opinion, Linganore seems to be a better, more diversified version of Urbana.
Yeah.
Whereas it seemed Urbana basically was a one-man show.
Yeah, exactly.
Although a great and awesome show.
Yeah, it was great one trait. Yeah.
But judging from the results from this past Friday, if you can actually, the past 2 weeks.
Right.
Because Urbana lost to Linganore in week 10.
Mm-hmm.
If you can shut down Mr. Gray, that's a recipe for success.
Right.
Linganore does have a few more weapons than that, but the trick is, so does Damascus.
Right.
Mr. Funk is the workhorse. I mean, he will literally wear you down by himself.
Right.
If Damascus wanted to, they could give him the ball 85% of the time and still come away with a comfortable win.
Right.
But the kicker is, as soon as you get used to and worn down by Jake, you totally forget about arguably the best athlete in the state on the outside, one of the fastest players on the state on the outside.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the dagger.
Right.
That's the riddle that no team has been able to solve so far. Because as soon as you think you've figured it out and you got a bead on what they're doing, then they remind you, oh, by the way, here's our South Carolina commit.
Yeah.
Try to stop him too.
Right.
And Jalen Christian, he's the truth. And personally, I don't think, and that's only speaking on the offensive side of the ball. On defense, both Mr. Funk and Mr. Christian are excellent.
Absolutely.
They
Right.
So yeah, you're going to be staring at those two and the rest of the Swarming Hornets for all 4 quarters, and I don't think Linganore has the gas for that.
Yeah.
So I'm predicting a Damascus win, 32-14.
Yeah, I can get with that score. I think that Damascus has so many things that they can do well, and the only thing that can hurt Damascus is if Linganore can find some kind of way to put it back in Damascus' quarterback's hands. If they can force Damascus to go to the air, then they might have a chance. They have more than a chance in the game. Let me specify that right now. I'm not saying that this is a lopsided matchup where Damascus has some kind of crater advantage. But I definitely think that Damascus is the better team. But if Linganore can find some kind of way to put Damascus in a situation where they have to go to the air, then they might have a chance. But with that being said, I believe Damascus can win a 7-3 game or a 14-7 game. So I even if their traditional offense is not necessarily working the way they usually want it to work, I still think that the coaching staff might say, hey, especially if Linganore is not, really going off, I think that the coaching staff might just say, hey, let's just continue what we're doing, and play field position and win this game 14-7 or 7-3 or 10-7. So I definitely think that Damascus is in a great position. I think that they have all the necessary tools, not only for this game, but going forward. Talking about excitement, the game of the week, the one that we've been kind of waiting for since the matchup in the regular season, we got Northwest this time going to Quince Orchard, trying to pull off another win in the Cougar Dome in the postseason. They did it last year, and last time it was an upset. I think this time, I don't think anybody would really call it an upset, but definitely after the last time we saw these two teams on the field, Northwest has a lot of things to prove, and I think that they're going to be coming in here with a chip on their shoulder to prove that last game was a little bit of an aberration. What do you think about this game, Damon? I mean, this is a game that this is a budding rivalry now. I think it's safe to say they don't really like each other. The two teams and two schools. It's getting to that point where you're in my way and I'm in yours, and somebody got to move. So, what do you think about this game? Do you think that Mark Pierce and the crew and EJ Lee are gonna get it together and be able to score more than 20-something points? Do you think that they're gonna have to score 48, maybe even 50 points to keep up with Q? Do you think that that Northwest is gonna still have the problems in the run game that was present in the first matchup, or do you think that Coach Neubiser has something up his sleeve that is gonna be able to not necessarily stop it but limit the rushing attack by Kiwo?
I mentioned this probably last week and even before that.
Right.
That the winner of the Northwest Quince Orchard regular season matchup, while both teams wanted to win, it was kind of a double-edged sword, because that most likely meant you were going to play Clarksburg in the first round.
Yeah.
And obviously that's what happened.
Yeah.
And the reason nobody really wanted to face Clarksburg, outside of the fact that, they're an extremely dangerous team and totally capable of pulling off the upset. They're a very physical team.
Right.
And watching the Quince Orchard Clarksburg game, I was able to see up close how physical it was.
Yeah.
There were several injuries in that game. Several on both sides of the ball.
Okay.
And nobody was shying away from contact. I can't overemphasize how physical a game that was. With that being said, Quince Orchard is going to be coming went into this game a little banged up. I don't have any kind of inside information on whether somebody's going to be out or whatever the case may be. But I will say that, I mean, anybody that saw that game will know that Quince Orchard will come in the more banged up of the two teams.
Right.
I mean, Quince Orchard played a long, physical 4 quarters, whereas Northwest, it was pretty much easy sailing. 38-3.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
I didn't see the game, but I would be shocked if any of the starters played the 4th quarter. So, with that being said, I don't expect this rematch to be a repeat of the regular season matchup.
Right.
Even if Quince Orchard hadn't played Clarksburg, I still would say the same. The regular season matchup was one of those rare games where everything went right for one team and everything
went wrong
for the
right.
other. And the final score was the result of that.
Right.
However, in that first matchup, Quince Orchard really did not have to deviate from their typical game plan.
Right.
They ran their offense, and Northwest was unable to stop it. There were no new wrinkles or anything crazy thrown in.
Right.
Different types of formation that they haven't shown all year. Nothing really to throw Northwest off from, at least when the kids come out the huddle.
Right.
So I'm saying that to say that I'm assuming that Quince Orchard has several things in their back pocket just for Northwest.
Right.
And even without that, I still think this would be a close game. But given all the factors and what we've seen so far from both teams, I think Quince Orchard is just built for this type of game at this point in the year. And unlike last year, where Northwest kind of snuck up on people, we've been saying it all year. They are now the hunted. And even though Quince Orchard still won that game
right.
during the regular season,
right.
there are a lot of people still picking Northwest to win this one. As a matter of fact, if you go to the boards on mocofootball.com, I do believe the current poll is sitting at 60% Northwest to Quince Orchard's 40 over who do you think is going to win the game.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that regular season matchup was an aberration.
Yeah.
I'm not included in those people. I do believe Quince Orchard will hold on to victory. I don't think this will be a game where they'll have to come back. I think they'll hold on in a similar fashion they did versus Clarksburg. And I have Quince Orchard pulling out the win 24-16.
Okay.
I know this is going to sound crazy, but even though Quince Orchard gave up, I think it was 27 in the regular season matchup. A lot of that was toward the end of the game. I think they were playing a little looser. I think this is going to be an extremely tight game. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the running game woes, that's not something that's going to go away overnight for Northwest. I mean, that's a real problem for them. There's no doubt about that. In my opinion, Northwest has to look themselves in the mirror before the game and say, what are we going to be? Because that's all heart right there. Now, of course, without a doubt, it has a lot to do with scheme and things like that. Northwest on defense plays a defense that has natural gaps in their defense. So, because of that alone, that poses a problem for them to stop the run naturally. But it's about heart. It's about the front seven saying, what are we going to be? Are we going to be a team that is remembered for giving up, that many points and that many yards on the ground. I mean, Damascus had to ask themselves the same thing when they faced Red Crown Gray. You know, it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test of their will. It's going to be cold. You're going to have Kyle Green ramming his shoulder into your chest play after play after play. You're going to have Kim, ramming his shoulders into your chest play after play after play. You're going to have to use your arms in the cold weather and, having to tackle, two great running backs and the fullback and everybody involved. So I think that it's going to be a real problem. But with that being said, I'm picking Northwest. Now, and this is the reason why I say this, right? You talk to people that are at that game. You talk to, coaches around the county that were at that game, right? You saw other teams that faced Quince Orchard load up the box, bring a safety down into the box and try to, in an attempt to kind of limit the Quince Orchard rushing attack. For the most part, and when you talk to people, Northwest was in their base too high thing, right? And a lot of people that know football were kind of confused as to why Northwest was in a base too high look when clearly throwing the ball is not necessarily and Quince Orchard hasn't developed a real threat on the outside where you have to keep a safety over top. So it wasn't like, there was somebody, just a natural threat that was standing out there that you have to be scared about. So a lot of people were kind of confused and bewildered at the fact that Northwest did that, especially with that, that kind of defense where you have natural gaps in your scheme. You can easily get double teams in their little 3-3 scheme that they run. You can easily get double teams and chip up the backer and things like that. It's real easy to do it. That's why you have to have a good nose guard in that defense. You have to. If you don't, you're dead. So I think that there was a little bit of mad scientist a little bit.
Wait a second. I just need to clear this up for my own sanity.
Uh-huh.
Are you saying Northwest purposely played a basic defense with the thought in mind that we would rather have Quince Orchard play Clarksburg in the first round?
I'm not saying that they threw the game.
Okay.
But
I just wanted to clear that up.
I'm not saying they threw the game. I'm just saying that they, it's remember a few weeks ago when we talked about the scouts were out in Montgomery County for the playoffs?
Yeah.
Well, you're literally facing the team that you're probably going to be facing in the playoffs. Literally on the field, they're facing the same players, everything like that. So was there maybe a chance where it was like, win the battle, win the war kind of thing? I'm not saying it definitely was that, but you gotta kind of think to yourself. I mean, Damon, you were at the game, right? Yeah. Didn't you at some point think to yourself, why don't they just roll that safety down? Why don't they kind of get out of what they were doing? Like, I'm not saying that it might have just been an oversight, right? It might have just been an oversight. It might have just been, they just didn't adjust at all. But I think that Northwest, I really do think that it's going to be a different game this time. Now, I don't think that it's going to be a blowout either way. But I think that this time Carson Knight is going to have to make some passes. It's not going to be 4 this time. And
I hear you.
And that's where I'm going with this. Like when I picked Northwest to win in the regular season, I honestly believe that Northwest was going to be able to put the game in Carson Knight's hands, right? And force him to win, to win the game. And clearly Quince Orchard didn't even have to do that at all, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If this is the case, I don't know if the results were the ones that are expected, because on the other side, Quince Orchard really didn't change anything up.
Right.
I mean,
so basically what I'm saying is Quince Orchard didn't have to do, was basically in the base, first day or two of their stuff offensively, right?
correct.
They didn't really do anything special, right? From all reports, Northwest wasn't really doing anything special on defense either.
Correct.
So I think that both now, this is all or nothing now, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no holding back in this game.
There's no holding back in this game, right?
I wouldn't be surprised to see Quince Orchard come out 4 wide and
right.
and Northwest in a wing tee.
In a wing tee, right? If they have it, if it's been in the lab, they're gonna pull it out. No doubt about it, right? So, in my opinion, it's gonna be a little bit of a different game, right? Now, when we look at both teams and what they can do, I definitely think Quince Orchard is better suited for the weather that they're going to be in. So that's always something that you got to look at. I think that Quince Orchard has, the exact formula to win in cold weather games, the running backs, the fullbacks, everything. But when it comes down to it, I think that you need special players to do special things. And when you have, and I see, look, I've picked against Florida State this season a couple times.
With good reason. Florida State is suspect.
Yeah, but they got a team. They got a kid on their team named Jameis Winston. That when the chips are down and it's money time, he gets it done, right? And the reason why is because that kid's a champion. And I believe that the championship medal of Mark Pierce, E.J. Lee, all those kids, it's gonna come out on Friday night. And I think they're gonna, win a very, very close game versus Quince Orchard. I don't think that they're ready to give up the throne. They work too hard for it, man. I mean, I'm just, honestly, away from the analytic point of view, there've been years where, Northwest was poked fun at, laughed at. You guys are the passing league kings. Nobody cares about what you're doing, things like that. Quince Orchard will walk around, S on the chest. We're the greatest things in the world, right? They scratch claw, go through 1-9 seasons, scratch claw, go get all the way up to the top. And in 1 year, they're going to let it go? Nah, I think I think they're going to want to hold on to this thing for 1 more year, baby, and ride it out. And I don't think that they're going to I don't think they want this magical carpet ride to end right now. Not versus Quince Orchard. I think they're going to be ready for this game, and I think that they're going to pull this one out. The championship medal of Mark Pierce, I'm going to count on that. I'm going to count on Jamari Wilson. I'm going to count on E.J. Lee. I'm going to count on those guys, and I think that they're going to pull it out. And I may be dead wrong. I may have the egg on my face or whatever, but I'm going to go with the champions, man. I'm going to go with the champs. Till you knock out the champs, you got to go with them. You know what I'm saying? And,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to go with the champs. I'm going to go with the champs, man. I'm sorry. Picking a champion and he gets knocked out and, I gotta kind of live with that. But I can't live with picking against the champion and the champion prospers. There's nothing I could say at that point. I messed up at that point. You know what I'm saying? Because doubting the heart of a champion, can't do it. I can't do it. So that's what I'm going with. I might be wrong, but hey, I take it. I'm a big boy. You know, I know y'all Quince Orchard people gonna give me hell when I come in there on Friday. That's fine. I'm cool. You know, like I said, I'm a big boy, man. I could take it. But transitioning over here is, you know, before I dig myself even in a bigger hole, transitioning over to the Paint Branch Howard game. I think that this is a game that's really going to define Paint Branch's program as we're standing right now. And I think that this is going to define Paint Branch's season, everything. And the reason why I say that, Damon, is because I feel like they should definitely beat Howard, right? But there's been times in the past where Paint Branch has been favored, where Paint Branch has a good enough team, but for whatever reason they come up short. They should be playing in the semifinals a week from now.
Agreed.
Okay? They need to get this done. Like, I'm not gonna even, you can go look at Howard's tape. They run a spread. You have two good running backs, a good wide receiver, quarterback can throw the ball very long. That's basically what they are, okay? Move that aside. Paint Branch needs to get this done. Bottom line, in my opinion. Because they have the team right now. I know they're young. I know that next year they're going to be fantastic. But get it done right now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at the end of the day, in my opinion, like, a lot of people were saying that about Northwest last year. Oh, they're young. You know, the quarterback is young. They're maybe like a year away. Everything like that. Northwest came in, did what I had to do, got a ring. It's time for Paint Branch. I believe Paint Branch has had a couple teams that could have went to that level, right? It's time for them to have the mental, you know, the mental toughness to go up to Howard, get it done, and get into the semifinals. And at that point, everything is a go. You might have Roosevelt. You could have Quince Orchard or Northwest. At that point, everything's a go. So, I mean, what do you think of this matchup? Do you think Paint Branch is in the position where they have to win this game?
If Paint Branch is able to pull out this win over Howard, which I'm picking them to do, they definitely have the easier road, in my opinion, to M&T. If Paint Branch wins and all the other favorites win, ironically, it's going to be Quince Orchard and Paint Branch in the semifinal.
Right.
But at any rate, yeah, I don't think this is a quote-unquote must-game win for Paint Branch. This was supposed to be a down year for them anyway. And at the end of the day, if for whatever reason they don't win, just like last year, then we can say, we're in a state semis. One game away from the bank. For a team that was in their down year, that's pretty damn good. However, on the flip side, if they do lose, at least from my viewpoint, it doesn't reflect well on Paint Branch. Talked to a few people up in Howard County, and for the mere fact that they're playing a Montgomery County team,
yeah,
regardless of where they fall into line in the Montgomery County rankings,
yeah,
this is a huge game for them. Like,
yeah.
if they beat Paint Branch, you can't tell them nothing. Because in their mind, they're like, we beat the Montgomery County team. Montgomery County is the best county for football in the state.
Right.
We're undefeated, so on and so forth.
Right.
I mean, they've already knocked off River Hill in week 10 to win the county championship up in Howard. That's an excellent feather in their cap.
Absolutely.
So River Hill may be having a quote-unquote down year. It's still River Hill.
Right.
Coach Van Dusen is still at the helm.
Right.
Best coaches in the state.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you don't know about River Hill, then you don't know about Maryland football.
Yeah, you must be like 2 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Howard knocked them off in a close game at the end of the year. Both teams had relatively easy games in the first round, with Paint Branch just thumping undefeated Mervo from Baltimore City 42-8, and Howard handling Perry Hall of Baltimore County 28-7. So
right.
that sets up, a quality showdown.
Right.
Howard is by far the class of Howard County, and some pundits up there calling them one of the better teams in Howard County history.
Right.
And Howard County has had some very good teams.
Yeah.
We already mentioned River Hill, but
Wild Lake.
some of you might remember Wild Lake. The best I can describe Wild Lake is the Damascus version of Howard County.
Right.
Very solid program. But for people to think that Howard's in that realm,
right,
that's saying something. But even with all that, I fully expect Paint Branch to pull this out. They're healthy. Offense seems to be clicking. It seems very balanced. And if Paint Branch's offense is clicking, yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be extremely hard. In Paint Branch's first round game against Mervo, the offense was so on point. Davis Cray, the quarterback, completed a total of 17 of 20 passes for almost 230 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, he was almost perfect. And I have to give a shout out to the player with my absolutely hands down favorite name in all of Montgomery County. Fanta.
Yes, sir.
Wide receiver for the Paint Branch Panthers. He had seven catches for about 90 yards. He was definitely the workhorse in the Paint Branch receiving corps. But yeah, I want to say it again. Fanta.
Yeah.
You will not convince me there's a better name.
No, there's not.
In Montgomery County, and that's with a Damon Anderson at Paint Branch. I'm literally picking Fanta over my own name.
Yeah, right. Nah, I mean, that's a fantastic name, man. I mean, Fanta. Like, I mean, that's a wonderful name. I mean, he and beyond the name, he's actually a really good player. Well, that's it, man. Go out to the games, have fun, and it's gonna be real cold. So get the hand warmers out, your little binky out, and make sure that, you guys, if you got young children, make sure they're well clothed and everything like that, and go at it. I mean, support the boys, man. I mean, they work their butts off to get to this point. If you're in Paint Branch, a Paint Branch supporter, drive out to Howard and see them play and support the teams and everything like that. I'm sure that the Quince Northwest team game is going to be a really, really packed game as it was the first time. So I don't even think I have to worry about rallying troops for that one. But yeah, come out, see a great game. This is the top of the top. This is the elite of the elite. We really don't even have to pick a game of the week for this, because all of them are going to be great games from here on out. So, go out, support, and have a great time. This is MochaFootball.com weekly podcast. See you next week.